In the summer of 2013, three childhood friends, Rachel Doucette, Marcus Beaumont, and Elena Vasquez, took a small aluminum boat into a remote section of Louisiana bayou that locals called the Still Water, a section so choked with cypress trees and hanging moss that GPS signals reportedly failed the moment you entered it. They went looking for a light that older fishermen swore had been following boats through that swamp for generations. They wanted proof. What they found instead followed them home. Rachel is the only one who still speaks about that night, and only when she's certain no one will laugh. The first hour. They entered the still water just after sunset, when the light was said to appear most reliably. Rachel's uncle, a shrimp boat captain named Boudreau, had warned them that morning not to go, not because the swamp was dangerous in the way people usually meant, but because the light, once it started following you, expected something in return by the time you left. "It ain't a ghost," he told them, refusing to elaborate further. "Ghosts want to be remembered. This thing wants to be paid." Marcus laughed it off as another bayou legend, the kind every small fishing town collects to keep tourists cautious and children close to home. Boudreau didn't argue with him. He simply told them that if the light got close enough to see clearly, they should turn off their own boat lights immediately, and under no circumstances should they wave back at it. They ignored most of his advice within the first 20 minutes. The swamp swallowed sound quickly once they were deep inside it. No birds, no insects, just the soft slap of water against the hull and the occasional distant groan of a cypress trunk settling in the mud. Elena kept the outboard motor at a slow idle, navigating by memory and moonlight since, exactly as Boudreau predicted, their GPS had frozen the moment they crossed into the still water. At 9:12 p.m., the light appeared behind them. The light. It was pale yellow, roughly the size of a lantern, hovering about a foot above the water's surface, always maintaining precisely 100 feet of distance no matter how fast or slow they moved. Marcus tried speeding up sharply to test it. The light matched their speed instantly, without any visible source pushing or pulling it forward. Rachel wanted to turn back immediately. Elena, fascinated, insisted on trying to get closer instead, cutting the engine entirely to see if the light would approach in the silence. It did, slowly, deliberately, closing the 100-foot gap by roughly 10 feet at a time, then stopping, as if testing whether they would panic. By the time it had closed to 30 feet, they could see it wasn't a single light at all, but dozens of much smaller lights clustered together, moving independently within the larger shape, like fireflies trapped inside a lantern none of them could see. Marcus, against every instinct Rachel had, raised his hand and waved. The lights went out instantly, plunging the swamp into total darkness. What followed? For nearly a minute, nothing happened. Then, from very close to the boat, closer than the light had ever been, they heard something enter the water. Not a splash, but a slow, deliberate submersion, as though something large had lowered itself in rather than jumped. Elena restarted the engine immediately, and they moved as fast as the narrow channels allowed, cypress knees scraping the hull in the dark. Behind them, the water surface rippled steadily, tracking their exact path without ever quite catching up, matching their speed the way the light once had. At some point during the chase, Rachel realized Marcus had gone completely silent beside her. When she turned to check on him, he was staring directly behind the boat with an expression she'd never seen on him before, not fear exactly, but recognition, as if he was looking at someone he knew. He raised his hand again, slower this time, and waved a second time. The moment his hand went up, the ripple behind them stopped entirely. The swamp went quiet in a way that felt heavier than before, a silence with weight to it. Elena kept the engine running, refusing to slow down, and within another 10 minutes they broke free of the tree line into open water where their GPS signal returned instantly, as if the still water had simply released them. They did not discuss what had happened until they reached the dock. The dock. When they tied off the boat under the marina's lights, Rachel turned to ask Marcus if he was all right. Marcus was gone. His life jacket sat exactly where he'd been sitting, still buckled, as though he had somehow been removed from inside it without unfastening a single strap. His phone was tucked in the jacket's pocket, screen unlocked, showing a single note typed at some point during the boat ride: "It's not following the boat. It's following whoever waves back. I think I already said yes." Boudreaux, called immediately, arrived within the hour and refused to take a search boat back into the still water that night, insisting that whatever happened had already finished happening, and that searching further would only offer it a second guest. Marcus was never found. Local search efforts, conducted over the following weeks, turned up nothing in the still water except, according to one searcher's report that was never made public, a life jacket identical to Marcus's own, floating undisturbed in the exact center of the channel, decades old and long out of production, as if it had been waiting there since long before that night. After Elena moved out of state within the year and has declined every request to discuss what happened. Rachel stayed, eventually asking Boudreaux the one question she'd been avoiding since that night: what the light actually wanted, and why waving back seemed to matter so much. Boudreaux told her the light didn't want to be seen. It wanted to be acknowledged, a very specific, very old distinction, he said, between being noticed and being answered. Once you answered it, even by accident, even with something as small as a wave, you'd made an agreement it considered binding, whether or not you understood the terms. Rachel never went back into the bayou after dark. But she says that sometimes, on still summer evenings, she catches herself watching porch lights a little too long, waiting to see if one of them holds steady exactly 100 feet away, patient, and willing to wait as long as it takes for someone new to wave.